Hi, and welcome back. In the last lesson, we had just put our character back together in pretty much the same Z order or layer order, if you like, as we had in Photoshop. Now we haven't got the same pose as we had in Photoshop. That's what animation is for. So we're going to do that next, or rather, we're going to prepare to do that next, using bones to control each of these sprites by making limbs and various articulated, jointed features that we can use like a marionette puppet. So once we have a series of bones in, what we're going to do is link all of our sprites to their relevant bones and then animate the character using bones. So you can see here at the top of the palette window, I have this Alt click to create a bone option, and over here next to Z order in our in our Z order window, you can see there's a tab for hierarchy. So if I click on hierarchy, it actually looks pretty much the same as Z order for the moment, um, where this is like a parent-child list of all of our sprites. And as you can see, the hierarchy at the moment is completely flat. Everything is linked to the world. So we're going to change that now pretty soon, but we're going to link each of these to various different bones. So we've got to create the bones first. So as I said, Alt and click will create a bone. So if I hold down Alt on my keyboard and just draw over the pelvis, that will, I'll draw that up to about there, and then you can see that's created bone 0 up here, right? Now, if generally if something is orange in Spriter, it's selected. So you can see that's the selected bone. And if you have a bone selected and you Alt click and create another one, it will immediately make the next bone a child of the bone that you just created. So you can see that this is indented bone 1 here, so that bone 1 is now a child of bone 0. And likewise, if I make one up here for the head, bone 2 is a child of bone 1. So what that means then is that you can see that as I hover over them, I can rotate them. So if I rotate the head bone, it'll swing left and right like that, and it won't change its size. Just going to undo that there, Control Z. If I do the same thing here with this middle bone, it doesn't move the pelvis, but it does bring the head with it, right? So that's, if you're new to bones, that's how parent-child relationships typically work like this. So the parent controls the child. If you have children yourself at home, you'll know that's not true at all. But in 3D and 2D animation, it is. So here we go. I'm going to just create the rest of the hierarchy. Now, I don't need to have the bones like actually connected to each other, but I can just click here, for instance, and Alt click this way. And as you can see, there's a little blue line there that's connecting the shoulder to the pelvis. Now, I don't want the shoulder to be connected to the pelvis because that wouldn't make sense. If I were to click on the pelvis and rotate it like that, the shoulder would go with it, which looks okay. But if I click there and swing that, you would expect if I move the rib cage that the arms would move. So I want to make sure that everything is clicking into the right place. So really, my shoulder, which is bone 3 there, ought to be a child of bone 1. Instead, if you just follow this, it's a child of bone 0. So what we can do is take bone 3 and just drag it onto bone 1. And we've just changed the hierarchy like that. Right, so you can see it all moves with it there. Right, so hold down Alt and I'll just create the rest of the skeleton pretty much like this. So bone 6, that would be my shoulder there, also a child of bone 1. And if I click on the pelvis there, of course, and then Alt click, the pelvis becomes the parent of the of this bone here, so of the hip. So clicking on the pelvis again. I mean, I will probably make little tweaks and adjustments to these because I'm not sure if I'm rotating them from exactly the right spot. That's something I need to test. And click here. I know that the toe, I would want to rotate it from there. So it'll be different in the case of every set of sprites that we've got, but so you can see there that the toe would move with respect to that, you know. So so now the next thing to do is to start linking the sprites to the bones. So as you can imagine, you know, like you can just start dragging these things on. You saw me do it with the bones themselves, but you know, for instance, we know that bone 1 here is the rib cage bone, right? So if I double click there, I'm just going to call that bone rib cage. And you know, for instance, the backpack would be a child of the rib cage. So if I were to move that, you know, that should move with it. So the rib cage and the shoulder strap would also be children of that. But what I'm actually going to do is click on the bone, and if I press B, everything goes transparent. Any sprite that I click now becomes a child of that bone. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that, and just pressing B. The hair would also become a child of that. It might be easier to grab some of these things. From the list. So I'm going to, where possible, do it by holding down B and then clicking a sprite. You see that they all go transparent when I do that. But you can also see as I do this, the hierarchy is updating itself all the time. Oops, and I don't want to accidentally move anything. Which I just did. Okay, so now, as you can see, my character is rigged up. Okay, so I may make some minor tweaks to, you know, just getting the pivot points of these things in exactly the right place, but pretty much that's the idea, and you can test out your own characters yourself. So next step, start creating some animations. Okay, so thank you, and we'll see you in the next lesson.